Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Friday, the 4th of October, 2024. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed down 0.7% today to 8,150 points, ending a 3-week winning streak. Fears about tensions in the Middle East dominated trading, and for the week, the bourse was down nearly 1%. Miners were hardest hit today as the enthusiasm about last week's stimulus measures from Beijing waned somewhat. BHP and Rio Tinto both dropped close to 2%. The banks also fell, with the big four all down around 1.5%. The tech stocks were lower, led by WiseTech, which ended down 3%. And industrial property giant Goodman Group closed 2% lower. CSL was an outperformer. Best in the day was Light & Wonder, which rallied 8% after the gaming company said it intended to develop a new version of its popular Dragon Train game following an intellectual property dispute with Aristocrat Leisure earlier in the year. Story number 2, oil prices have been reasonably low in recent months, and we've all appreciated that at the petrol bowser, but the region provides about 1/3 of the world's oil, and prices are rising again. The most recent spike today followed US President Joe Biden commenting almost casually that the US and Israel had discussed striking Iranian oil fields. That pushed up the big oil and gas companies locally, with Woodside gaining 2.2%, Santos jumped 2.1%. Others to benefit were Viva Energy, Horizon Oil, Strike Energy, and Karoon Energy. Story number 3, related to the earlier story, a series of huge explosions rocked densely populated neighbourhoods south of Beirut overnight as Israel kept up its bombing campaign aimed at Hezbollah leaders and weapons stores. Shockwaves shook buildings across the Lebanese capital, and 3 Israeli officials told the New York Times that the airstrikes were intended to destroy an underground bunker where senior Hezbollah leaders were meeting. The explosions came shortly after an Israeli warplane carried out an airstrike in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, in which Palestinian health officials said at least 18 people were killed. Israel said it had killed a Hamas commander. Meanwhile, the Australian Federal Police, along with every state and territory police force, have warned that they will not tolerate violence at pro-Palestinian rallies that will go ahead over the weekend. Story number 4, Elon Musk and his company X Corp must comply with a transparency notice issued by the country's online safety watchdog. The federal court has ruled X unsuccessfully challenged the validity of the notice and a $610,000 fine associated with it. But today, Judge Michael Wheelerhand said that the e-safety commissioner, Julie Inman-Grant, was right to issue the notice requiring the platform to provide information about how it was meeting the basic online safety expectations in relation to child sexual exploitation and abuse material and activity hosted on its site. X took the commissioner to court last year, challenging the fine and the validity of the notice itself. Brett Walker SC, acting for the company, argued the notice didn't apply because the company didn't exist when the notice was issued. The notice was given to Twitter in February 2023, and X Corp came into being in March 2023. X Corp was also ordered to pay the e-safety commissioner's costs. This case is separate from the ongoing Administrative Appeals Tribunal matter concerning a video of a stabbing of a bishop in a Western Sydney church. And story number 5, a strike that closed US East and Gulf Coast ports will be suspended after the Dock Workers Union and the group representing ocean carriers reached an agreement overnight. The biggest strike on US ports in several decades was threatening to hurt the economy ahead of the presidential election. Negotiations, which had been at an impasse over wages and automation for months, will now continue, according to both sides. The work stoppage had threatened to upend the US economy by snarling global supply chains and halting imports of fresh foods, pharmaceuticals, and other consumer goods, according to a report in the Financial Times. JP Morgan analysts estimated it could cost the US economy as much as $4.5 billion a day. The 3 dozen affected ports span from Maine to Texas and together handle 1/4 of the country's annual international trade, worth $3 trillion. US President Joe Biden congratulated the union and the United States Maritime Alliance, which represents the carriers, on the deal, saying in a statement that it represents critical progress towards a strong contract. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 4th of October, 2024. Adam Lang, Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.